if you look in the last 200 years, we talked about this a little bit so far this semester. We're in a current mass extinction event. These are just a sprinkling of examples. The passenger pigeon, which was the most abundant bird in North America in the 1800s, which we hunted to extinction at the turn of the last century. The great hawk. Carolina parakeet is our only native parrot to North America. This was extinct early 1900s. Changes in land use practices caused its extinction. Steller sea cow. You could add ivory-billed woodpeckers. You can add, the list goes on and on and on. Dodos.
What is a sea cow?
A Steller sea cow is related to the manatee, which our own native manatee is also critically endangered. Too much boat traffic in the Everglades is causing the demise of a lot of our native manatees. Zoos that have manatees, the Columbus Zoo in Ohio has a manatee tank. Basically, all of their manatees are rescues from boats. They all have like fins chopped off or scars on their back from propellers that nearly killed them. They were taken out of the wild. It's basically a rehabilitation facility. The manatee exhibit at the Columbus Zoo. They take them out of the Everglades. They ship them to Columbus, and they keep them there for a year or two and get them nursed back to health, and then they take them back to the Everglades and restock them. So every couple of years, they get a turnover in the manatees that are in their exhibit. We've had some conservation successes. Whooping crane, bison, sea otter, gray whale, northern elephant seal are all species that probably should be extinct. Bison, for example, were basically extinct, completely extinct in the wild. We hunted them to extinction. It was only some ranchers in Wyoming and Montana that kept captive herds on their property within fences and kept people from hunting them, that kept them from going extinct. So bison really are not, in the wild, don't exist. Bison essentially are a captive species at this point.
Then why are we planning on eating them?
There's enough, I mean, they raise them like cattle, and there's enough of them that we can eat, serve. It is really good, and there's enough of them now that we can do that, in a limited manner. It's expensive.
Not in Washington. It's cheaper in Washington.
Well, it probably would be because it's less shipping costs. Because there are most of your bison facilities are up in the northwest, so it would be cheaper northwest. But actually, you can get bison locally. There is one farm in Big Sandy, a bison farm that butchers animals, and you can buy the Big Sandy bison meat. There's a few grocery stores in Tyler that actually carry it. If you want to try bison, I know the granary, which is just up the street from campus on the corner of 5th and Billwood, they usually have bison. Yeah.
They're having Walmart. Having Walmart.
Walmart does?
Yep.
Oh, okay. You know that? There you go. Is it in the freezer section?
No, it's just cold section. Or the rest of the meat.
Oh, okay. Is it local or is it from the northwest?
Not from the north.
Okay. Yeah, the local, I think you have to go to like the granaries, unless I know of, to get the local ones. Very lean. There are a number of extinctions that have been caused by pathogens that we have imported. Chestnut blight. Our Native American chestnut is extinct because of chestnut blight. It's a European fungal disease that we brought over, that made it over to North America, not purposefully, but it made it over with immigrants, and it wiped out our American chestnuts. Dutch elm disease, another European disease that came with European immigrants. It wiped out most of our American elms. There are some American elms that survived that were resistant to Dutch elm disease. You can actually get on the internet and look at a map and find where the native American elm trees are. There was one across the street from us in Columbus. Really old, probably 150-year-old elm tree. It's really cool. Smallpox we've eradicated, measles, diphtheria. Smallpox we've eradicated from vaccines and just being able to deal with it. These guys are making a comeback thanks to the anti-vaxxer movement. Which was?
I want to say a couple of weeks ago when I saw that there's no a research study done, there was no correlation.
Yes, I did see that. Yeah. It was a very comprehensive, very long-term, good science paper destroying the link between autism and vaccines. Yeah, that was a nice piece of science. It was good to see. I was really happy to see that. And it's, if you look at, it's funny, California, it's kind of, there's like a little epicenter of measles and diphtheria and whooping cough and these childhood disorders that we almost eradicated. That around Los Angeles, there's a little subpopulation of these disorders coming back out. Normally our herd immunity kind of protects us from these things too, because most everybody, I mean, if you go to public school or you go to university, you have to be vaccinated. They won't let you come to school here, right, unless you've had meningitis vaccines,
well, no,
measles, mumps, rubella. Can you get a medical
like
pass?
if there's some sort of appeals process that you can do if you don't want to get certain vaccines.
Oh, other times, like, if you have a history of certain, like, case accidents.
Oh, right. You know, you can get them. I knew that. There is a medical forgiveness, like you get Tay-Sachs or something like that. But normally, it's not easy to get around having to be vaccinated. But you have, with homeschool kids on the rise, I think that's the subculture that tends to get away with not vaccinating. And then you get these little pockets of these diseases. Anyone know where Barrow, Colorado Island is? It's in the middle of the Isthmus of Panama. We talked about peninsular effects. What did we say happens as you go down a peninsula? You get an increase in what? It's not an increase in diversity, but another important observation, endemism. So as you move down a peninsula, you tend to get more endemic species. When they flooded the Panama Canal, there were a lot of habitat was gone. I mean, that's sort of the epicenter. There was an endemism epicenter where the Panama Canal was. When they flooded the Panama Canal, it caused 50 species to go extinct of birds. There was about 150 native species, endemic species of birds to Panama that occurred where the Panama Canal was. And when they flooded the Panama Canal, 50 of them went extinct. There was no longer, the only habitat left was Barrow, Colorado Island. And so this was like a cemetery for endangered birds, basically. 50 different species went extinct on this island right after the formation of the Panama Canal. We're going to look at mass extinctions in the fossil record because we have evidence of 7 different mass extinctions roughly that we can denote from the fossil record. The dinosaurs are the most famous example, about 65 million years ago for that extinction. Pleistocene megafauna we've already talked about, its mass extinction and explanations for it. Most of the causes of our major mass extinction events have been changes in climate, either global cooling or global warming, movement of continents, or impact of asteroids.
Is that what killed dinosaurs, asteroids?
Yep. And I'll go through the fossil evidence for that. So this graph shows you the timing of these mass extinction events. So you have one lit up in red in the Ordovician. These are dips in the number of families. You have another dip in the Devonian. This is the biggest mass extinction. It happened at the in Permian. And you had another one that happened in the Triassic soon after. You have another one at the end of the Cretaceous. And then we've had two quaternary mass extinction events, the end of the Pleistocene and then the last 200 years. So we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could arguably split this one into two. So they're in the same period, so we'll call it six mass extinction events. The interesting thing about this quaternary extinction is this is the one that's been caused by us. Going back to the Pleistocene, to our current extinction crisis. I mean, it's interesting if you look if you go to the museum at Ohio State University and their mussel museum, they have a display. It's like a ceiling to floor display of all of the native mussels from Ohio, and about a quarter of them are extinct. Almost all of the ones that were endemic to the Ohio River are gone. Because the Ohio River, they went in the early 1900s and they basically turned it into a series of reservoirs. All the riffles were dredged up, and they made it so that you could take barges down the Ohio River. And so almost all of the native Ohio River mussels are gone. It's kind of depressing when you stand there and look at this floor to ceiling display, and like every fourth one has a big red extinct stamp on it. Do you have a question?
When did dinosaurs go extinct on this chart?
Right. So actually, it's not the biggest mass extinction that has occurred. It was pretty selective for large ectothermic species. The smaller endothermic species survived. So the bird-like dinosaurs, the mammals, and it really didn't affect very few aquatic organisms. Only the really big, again, the big ectothermic kinds of species disappeared.
So the biggest one there
is the
when
Pangea large.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the largest mass extinction that's occurred on our planet is when Pangea formed. So let's go through them. So the late Ordovician and the Devonian were caused by a glacial event. And if you look, the Devonian is called the Age of Fishes. This is really the epicenter of fish evolution on our planet. And so you really, in the Devonian, at the very end of the Devonian is when amphibians start to evolve. So you really don't have any vertebrates at all to speak of in these two periods. Ordovician, fish are the only vertebrates, and they're ancient groups of fishes, placoderms and things like that that are long extinct. In the Devonian, you start to see the evolution of bony fishes, and at the very end of the Devonian, you get evolution of amphibians. So during these periods, the invertebrates were the dominant group of organisms on the planet. And invertebrates had really not yet invaded the terrestrial world yet. The world at this point was largely marine. So during the Permian, this is the largest mass extinction. Pangea forms. You have mostly marine coastal varieties that go extinct in the Permian. And as I mentioned before, you can see the Permian mass extinction is very well documented in the fossil record. If you go to the east coast of the United States, you can find all sorts of Permian fossils along the coast because it was such a large mass extinction event. There's a ton of Permian aged fossils. So many so that this fossil line in the Permian really is what caused Stephen Jay Gould and his colleagues to sort of change the way we view fossils, and adaptive radiation becomes a punctuated equilibrium, rather, becomes the new way we view the fossil record. So punctuated equilibrium is basically mass extinction followed by speciation. And if we go back to that graph, that's exactly what you see. Every time you get one of these mass extinction events, boom, adaptive radiation. Boom, adaptive radiation, mass extinction, boom, adaptive radiation. So while extinction events are the demise of certain groups, it opens up all kinds of new niches for things that survive. So if you survive the mass extinction event, there are all sorts of new niches. Notice that this one sort of goes and there's no upward. Okay? Problem with our current mass extinction event is it's probably worse than the Permian, because we're causing species to go extinct way faster than speciation occurs. I mean, just in the last 200 years, we've caused the extinction of about a quarter of our native mussels in the United States. Just in the last 200 years.
So do you think, in your professional opinion, do you think it's going to get to the extent to where we kill out so much that we're going to lose our food source? Our human population projections, once we hit about 8 billion people, we're going to have major food and water shortages in certain parts of the world.
And how far are we from that?
We're about 7 billion.
Like,
How many years?
10 years. And in the parts of the world that are the most threatened, where you have the most extinction happening right now, there are places like Malaysia, Indonesia, Madagascar. They're places that are kind of off the radar. Central Africa. I mean, these are becoming critical. You know, the places, you know, your developed world will probably be fine still, continue to be fine. What I predict you're going to see within 10 years is much more of the kind of situation you have in Somalia and the Congo spreading into parts of Asia. Yeah.
Which we're going to be a part of, because we're Americans.
So I mean, I think you're seeing a preview in Central Africa of what's to come in other parts of the world where you have food shortages and government breakdown and those kinds of problems. In the U.S. and China and India and in most of Europe, you're not going to see those kinds of effects continuing over other countries. It's the degree to which
we get dragged into the process that it will affect our lives. We grow enough food in the United States that if the rest of the world disappeared, we have food surplus. I mean, we pay people to let grain rot in storage silos. So we have no food shortage in this country. But the degree to which we're affected by other countries, that's, I mean, we have a huge, right now, we're not, our country population, we're basically replacing ourselves. When the baby boomers die, our population will shrink. So we're not a great threat on our resources. We use too much resources. We use too much water. There are parts of the country where our water is going to run out. California, West Texas. And you're starting to see that now. Arizona, New Mexico. Those places, you're going to eventually see water running out in West Texas and people mass moving from West Texas and all farming ceasing in West Texas, and basically it will be converted to one big giant windmill, because that's all. Once the Ogallala aquifer is gone, there's nothing to keep anyone in West Texas. There's no water, and so aside from pumping it stealing it from Dallas, which is never going to happen, there's no way to get water in West Texas.
So if the world ended, where would you move?
Where would I move?
Like if government shut down, zombie apocalypse, whatever you want to
I don't
call
know,
it.
East Texas is pretty comfortable. I know Arkansas pretty well. Somewhere remote and off the grid where there's plenty of water. Yeah, I don't trust the people in Arkansas. I'm pretty comfortable in East Texas. I know a few farmers that can grow lots of food. So that's probably what goes straight to. I have a farmer friend that in East Texas. I think probably the right in his place. All right, back to mass extinctions. Not ours yet. So the Permian, we talked about. Triassic is there was a minor glacial event that happened in the Triassic. A few years ago, there was a paper published where they indicated that there may be evidence of an asteroid impact during the Triassic. Kind of interesting. At the Triassic, if you look at the fossil record, you have a struggle between mammals and dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are small, mammals are small. You have this minor glacial period, maybe triggered by an asteroid impact. Mammals remain a minor group. Dinosaurs propel after the Triassic. This launches the age of the dinosaurs.
So you said there was a struggle between mammals and
Dinosaurs. After the Triassic mass extinction, dinosaurs explode in diversity, and they become freaking huge. Okay, you don't have big dinosaurs until after this extinction event. Then dinosaurs become the dominant organisms on the planet. They get big. They last until the end of the Cretaceous. In 1984, Alvarez and his colleagues published a paper in Science where they argued that an asteroid caused the mass extinction of dinosaurs. This idea goes back to the 70s, actually. Robert Bacher and some other dinosaur biologists were arguing that back in the 70s that some dinosaurs were endothermic, based on the bone density and you can hollow out dinosaur bones and look to see how many blood vessels, how much pulp material will be in the bones, and it differs greatly between between endotherms and ectotherms. There's a lot more marrow in bones of an endotherm. And so back in the early 70s, Robert Bacher was arguing that some dinosaurs would have been endothermic. There's too much space for marrow in the bones. He also he published a book, I forget what year it was published. It's called The Dinosaur Heresies, I think was the name of the book. And this is where he argued that some dinosaurs, the ones that survived this extinction, were bird-like, that their pelvis. You ever watch a lizard run? How does a lizard run? Right? Their pelvis is different than a bird pelvis. Bird pelvis, birds run. If you look at a velociraptor, the reason they made the velociraptors move fast is because they had a bird pelvis. They did not have a reptile pelvis. They didn't move like a lizard. Okay, so they were able to run fast, more like an ostrich, less like a lizard. So what went extinct in the Cretaceous were dinosaurs, a lot of your big marine reptiles, and some marine invertebrates. And if you look around, we call it the KT boundary. The K stands for Cretaceous. Why is it a K? Because Carboniferous gets the C abbreviation because it was before the Cretaceous. So we call it the KT boundary. It's boundary between the Cretaceous and the Tertiary. You guys have that geological timetable memorized now. When I throw out the Devonian and Tertiary and Cretaceous, you know what order they're in. And you know this boundary is about 65 million years ago because you've memorized that geological timetable. If you look at the end of the Cretaceous in the fossil record, there's a whitish, all of the rock has a whitish color layer around it. And it's a very rare element, iridium. Iridium is one of the rarest elements on Earth, but it's common in meteors and asteroids. So there's no Earth explanation for why you would have a thick layer of iridium at the end of the Cretaceous period in the fossil record unless there was an asteroid impact. That's the only explanation. And so Alvarez used that as his explanation. The team calculated what size of an asteroid would be required to cause this kind of a mass extinction, and they did not have any evidence where it was. A few years after Alvarez published the paper, they found the asteroid impact. It's off the coast of Yucatan, off the coast of Mexico, in the Atlantic Ocean. And it was almost exactly the size that Alvarez and his team predicted in the 80s. So it was like one of these yeehaw moments in science.
So what got you to say that there were human-like, like early humans back then?
No.
Impossible.
Impossible. Humans are in the 2 to 3 million years ago time frame, not 65 million years ago. So they've been watching too many episodes of Flintstones while taking meth. Yes. Yeah, humanoid life only goes back about 3 million years ago, not 65 million years ago. So there's no chance whatsoever that anything remotely humanoid. Primates 65 million years ago, I'm not sure that there were primates at all 65 million years ago. I have to look back at the history. I think primate evolution goes back about 100 million years. So there were some really, really, really primitive primates, but they were not humanoid at all.
Did you see that new, is it Pixar or Disney, The Good Dinosaur that's coming out?
I have not.
It's a human and a dinosaur being friends.
Oh, please no. That's worse than The Lion King. It's like The Lion King and Finding Nemo all rolled together with all the wrong...
What is it? The Good Dinosaur. It's a kid's movie coming out about a kid and a dinosaur being friends.
That's worse than Ice Age 2. Or Ice Age 3.
The dinosaur.
Yeah, the one where they found the dinosaur in the cavern underground. That's worse than that.
You should write them a letter.
I should.
You should. I don't know.
Next, they're going to make a Pixar movie about the Loch Ness Monster being friends with a kid or something.
Hey, there was already
With
a-
Bigfoot.
Well, you can't be mad at Good Dinosaur when we had cartoons like Dragon Tales.
I love Green.
That was
I
good,
actually
yeah.
like Dragon Tales.
It was so fun.
I actually like that one. But it's obviously trying to be fictional. That sounds like it's...
So why do you have a problem with it?
What?
It's obviously trying to be fictional, so why
He
is
died.
that?
The Kraft Brothers.
Why is there a problem?
Well, Finding Nemo was
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
be realistic, but it was not at all.
I don't know, I don't look at kids movies like that. But but I haven't seen that
Well,
video.
was Finding Nemo unrealistic just because Marley was supposed to be a mom?
Yes, that's the main problem.
Well, that's a little different.
Yeah,
That's
how are you
like,
going to
okay.
explain?
But
to
the
a
little
teacher
fish
this
would have been a
is-
girl too.
But how are you
Nemo would
going
have
to
been a girl.
explain
Nemo would have been a girl. Nemo should have been a girl.
I think it would
about
have
a
No, it
been
would- it should have
finding
been a-
mom? I mean,
a
finding
mom and
finding
her
a
daughter.
baby.
Like,
Yeah, it should have been a girl power movie. Totally. That's the only thing that makes sense.
Maybe we'll be finding Dory.
Finding Dory.
yeah, they're coming out.
Are they really doing that?
Yeah. But Dory's.
I could picture Dory getting lost.
You know, actually, the Dory depiction is funny. If you ever watched those stupid fish, they're like the dumbest. They even swim dumb. They just kind of, they're trying to. I have a marine tank, and we had one. And it was so dumb it like runs into stuff, and they can't really swim right.
See, so Finding Nemo's not that bad. Other than the fact that they should be girls.
How are you going to explain to a child when they see a dad turn into a mom? I mean, then they're going to be like, oh, Gershner is totally right. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's just the way.
But you don't need to explain
They
it
could
to
have
a
just
2-year-old.
had the dad die instead of the mom. Is what they could have done.
No, I explained to my children while watching Finding Nemo in the theater why it's wrong. And they were like 5 or 6 and 3, and they understood exactly what was
Well, your
wrong
kids are brilliant.
biologically with the movie.
Because you're their dad.
Yes.
But that's why. And people who aren't educated, I mean, if my dad would have told me that, I would have been like, like what's wrong with you? That's a dad. Like, I would have thought he was crazy.
No. My kids believe me. And I was right.
But you probably talk about this stuff all the time, right?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And they go on vacations to parks.
All right, so the extinctions at the Cretaceous also were concentrated in a very brief period of time. So the survivors of an asteroid impact like this would have needed to have the ability to thermoregulate, or they had life history stages that were resistant to brief, intense cold stress. If they were ectotherms, they needed to be small.
So that would be like the type of mammals we evolved from, small.
Yeah. So the mammals that survived, the dinosaurs that survived, were all small. They had fur or they had feathers, something that would have enabled them to survive. Or if you think about the ectotherms that did survive, what happens when it gets really cold or really hot to snakes and turtles and lizards?
Slow down.
They slow down and they go in holes in the ground. Desert tortoises live in the ground for about 50 weeks a year. They come out of the ground whenever it rains in the desert, and they eat like crazy. All the flowering stuff. The desert's beautiful when it blooms, and that's when the desert tortoises come out. And they eat, and they do all of their life activities, they mate, and everything that they're going to do in a couple of weeks. And they go back in a hole, and they go back to sleep, and they sleep for another 50 weeks. And they live for a long time. Desert tortoises can live like 80 years. But those species like that have the ability they would have been able to survive. They would have had the mechanism to survive this kind of thing. Snakes, same thing. Snakes just disappear in the wintertime. I mean, I do research in rivers in the wintertime, and we never see snakes. Never. They just disappear. They go in a hole in the ground, and they're gone. And then whenever the conditions become favorable for them to come out, then they come out, and then they're everywhere. Right, Janie? See a lot of snakes at some point, or a few of them.
I still couldn't see the one. I walked back and you couldn't show me that one. It was giant, but I couldn't see it.
Still makes me shiver.
What about mosquitoes?
Oh, mosquitoes can survive anything.
I don't feel like they're not as...
But their life cycle is so short, and things like that are easily able to survive short periods of stress.
But am I wrong? Like, I feel like they don't get fed as much during the winter.
You don't.
No.
You don't. They lay their eggs, and the larvae hatch, and then the larvae just kind of go to the bottom of the river and avoid freezing, and they just stay. sort of inactive until the weather warms back up again, and then the larvae will come out and hatch.
Like robins.
Yeah.
I don't realize that.
So you have lots of insect larvae will overwinter that way. A lot of your flying insects have an aquatic larval stage, and so they'll breed, and then the larvae will go into the bottom of the river, bottom of the lake, and they'll just sort of do nothing over the winter. And then when the conditions become favorable, then they emerge and come out and fly and attack you and do
Why
what
do
they do.
mosquitoes have a tendency to bite light-skinned people?
I think,
No,
They're-
that's a real thing. Like, I get attacked by mosquitoes. And do you remember, what's his name? When we were out there, he didn't put bug spray on his back. He had like 30 mosquito bites in like
There's-
5 minutes.
Mosquitoes are attracted to carbon dioxide you're giving off. They're attracted to your pheromones and your sweat. There are a variety of things that they're attracted to. So sometimes your diet, there's a variety of, I think mosquitoes just are attracted to, certain people just have certain smells that mosquitoes like.
So
he's a small guy.
you're too sexy for them.
That's it.
Yeah.
I get that all
All right, so again, the crater, the right size, the right age, was found off the coast of Yucatan after Alvarez published their paper. This is the last slide of this lecture, and I don't want to start a new one, so we are done. Have a great weekend.
How do we do?
Try not to get